Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Thursday, October 29th. There are no significant impacts across the Great Basin here for the next few days. We do have a cold front that will be dropping into Idaho and Wyoming briefly on Friday and Saturday, bringing some gusty winds on Friday and slightly cooler temperatures on Saturday. But most of the areas in the north, fuels are not as critical as they are further south in the Great Basin, where temperatures will be warmer and drier. We've had no precipitation or lightning the last 24 hours, and very light initial attack with only a few new small starts reported up in Idaho. Over the last 7 days, the only precipitation we've seen has been with cold fronts over the northern and eastern side of the Great Basin, and this precipitation has been fairly spotty. Over the last 2 weeks, you can see obviously just with those cold fronts, the precipitation, which is still well below normal for the time of year. Currently, our ERCs are most critical still over the southern half of the Great Basin, where ERCs are above the 80th to around the 90th percentile in some spots, although they have been decreasing with some of the cooler weather and cold fronts we've had move through. Further north, we do see certainly more drops in our fire danger across Idaho and Wyoming, where we've seen recent moisture and colder temperatures. But even over parts of southern Idaho into northern Nevada, we still have some drier conditions with ERCs rising with the warm and dry conditions we've seen over the last few days. ERCs in the north, looking at some of the charts in Idaho and southern Idaho that has not received as much moisture. ERCs are at records for the time of year, but certainly well below what we saw at the peak of fire season. So again, they are high for the time of year, but they are on the way down, trending, and they will trend further down a little bit with the cold front this weekend. Further south, ERCs are also at records, but again, above that 90th percentile for the time of year and still near or above average for even what we would see closer to the end of the fire season. 10-hour fuel moistures are most critical across Nevada and into the Arizona Strip and southwest Utah. And looking at our satellite image, you can see high pressure dominating off the west coast. We will see that impulse drop down across the Pacific Northwest into Idaho for Friday, Saturday, but then the ridge will rebuild and we will see warmer and drier conditions this weekend into next week. So looking at our fire potential for today, generally low to moderate fire potential in the south and generally low fire potential further north up into Idaho and Wyoming. Winds will be weaker than what we've seen in recent days, maybe just a slight moderate wind up across Idaho and Wyoming, but for the most part, generally light winds. Higher humidity across Idaho, Wyoming, and Utah, above 20%, with the driest conditions again across Nevada into the Arizona Strip, where relative humidity will remain below 12%. On Friday, you can see that cold front brushing the northern areas of the basin, moving into Montana. Again, this will bring some cooler temperatures and some gusty winds. Most of the moisture will remain off to the east. So still lower significant fire potential in the north and moderate in the south. You can see how those wind gusts increase on Friday. We will likely see gusts in the 30s to around 40 miles per hour, or a little bit higher in the higher terrain of central Idaho, but relative humidity still remaining above 20% in the far northern areas. Over parts of southern or southwest Idaho, where relative humidity will drop below 15%, we could see those winds peak above 30 or 35 miles per hour. So we could see a little increase in fire potential in the far southern part of the state briefly on Friday with those winds if we do get a start. Also some gusty winds into far northern Nevada with relative humidity in the 10 to 15% range. On Saturday, that cold front quickly moves off to the east and the ridge builds back into the west, so winds will be decreasing and we'll have some slightly cooler temperatures in the north, but still warm temperatures across much of Nevada, Utah, and the Arizona Strip. So you can see those gusty winds on Saturday, how they have moved well to the east. So lighter winds region-wide, maybe just some breezy winds along the ridge tops across the central Utah mountains, and relative humidity increasing over northern Nevada and northern Utah as that front pushes through, with still dry conditions in the south. No precipitation really expected across the Great Basin. Couldn't rule out a few very light showers in central Idaho, but most of the lighter showers will be up to the north with the front, but still generally a dry cold front moving through Friday, Saturday. As we move into Sunday and next week, we have a ridge of high pressure with warm and dry conditions, and that will continue to remain in place on Monday. And also on Tuesday, we had a weak area of low pressure move into Southern California, so we may see a little bit of moisture creep into far southern areas of the Great Basin, maybe just some cloud cover, probably not enough yet for a few showers, but we'll keep an eye on that to see if we get any moisture in the south. Otherwise, low to moderate fire potential. You can see in the north on Tuesday, another cold front starts to approach the Pacific Northwest, pushing some cloud cover and some breezy winds potentially into Idaho. And then that will continue on Wednesday. So maybe some slight cooling in the north on Tuesday, Wednesday, along with some breezy winds. But again, in the south, remaining warm and dry. Again, no precipitation really expected. Could see, again, just a few showers maybe in central Idaho with these two cold fronts moving through. Otherwise, dry and warm conditions. The 8 to 14-day outlook takes us from November 5th through the 11th. It's definitely showing more cooler temperatures up north as those cold fronts continue to brush northern areas with warmer and drier conditions in the south. We may see some chances towards the end of this period, November 9th, 10th, 11th, and then later in November for additional cold fronts to potentially bring some cooler temperatures and maybe even some moisture further south into the basin, but we'll continue to watch that pattern as it changes. That concludes our webcast for today. Check back tomorrow for the latest updates.